Hi all. So a while ago on YouTube, I stumbled down a wormhole of small kitchen appliance reviews. As I was looking to buy an air fryer and perhaps maybe a pressure cooker, that's when I stumbled across one of the worst YouTube chefs of all time. His name is Jack Scalfani, as I like to call him, Jack Salmonella Scalfani. I watch video after video of him butcher, sometimes quite literally, recipes. Imagine driving slowly past a multi-car pileup on the interstate. That's my face as I watched him teach the internet how to make partially cooked meals of varying types and taking awful and unneeded shortcuts to recipes that are already quick to prepare. The absolute horror of Jack's lazy man chefing, air quote, techniques to my boyfriend Tom. And now, since we can't unsee it, we are opening your eyes to it as well. I'm Michelle, and I welcome you to join us for this horrific journey, better known as Pink Chicken and the Lazy Man. Welcome back to Pink Chicken and the Lazy Man.
Pink Chicken and the Lazy Man. That's right, folks. Welcome back to another episode of Season 5 of Pink Chicken and the Lazy Man. I am Tom the Lazy Man.
I'm Michelle Pink Chicken.
We are your hosts in this tour of carnage of the Cooking with Jack show. We have moved on to yet another episode of Jack's failed attempt to capture the gastronomic zeitgeist of the mid-2022 calendar year, featuring the famous American-French-trained chef Julia Child.
So far, we're 0 for 2 on Jack's attempt at Julia Child recipes.
Right. We're moving on to his third episode in his series of somewhere between 6 to 8 episodes where he tried to ape the recipes of Julia Child. He called it
Julia in June.
Julia in June.
Even though the series ended in May. And all of the episodes surrounding the series itself, and then any other of the hanger-on smaller cooking shows.
This is the only time you will ever associate the words Jack Scalfani and a little behind in the same sentence. Normally the behind is much greater, much more massive.
Yes. So this episode, we've seen Jack
fuck up meatloaf,
fuck up brownies.
Right. He turned a pan of brownies into a pan of kitty litter.
The third installation of this is Julia's roast chicken recipe. Now, how could Jack fuck up a chicken? How can you fuck up roasting a chicken? Have you seen, for me, for Lazy Man, for you out there in the audience, it's very hard to fuck up a bird unless you undercook it, which he's done, or burn it, which he's done.
This is the man who literally made me invent the term Cronenberg, because he took an unsuspecting chicken and did what he called wet brine versus dry brine, and basically turned an unsuspecting chicken into a sci-fi fucking horror film that made us invent terms like fat stalactites and gizzard bag burntness. It was a horror show.
We can't go wrong with this one. We're gonna end up 0-3, I believe.
Not to date this video too much, but tonight Pink Chicken and I treated ourselves. We went out to the cinema, and we saw Damien Chazelle's epic waste of time called Babylon. Now, I'm a Brad Pitt fan, I'm a Margot Robbie fan, I'm a Damien Chazelle fan, but this film was just wasteful in so many ways. At the very end of the movie, not to give too much away, you know it's about film history. There's an unnecessary 9-minute montage of scenes of film school 101, very, very famous films. He covered Maya Daren's Meshes in the Afternoon. He showed a clip from Tron. One of the things he showed was Salvador Dali's film Le Chien Andalou, or The Andalusian Dog, where they razor blade the eyeball. That's the level of horror that Jack aspired to.
There's only so many ways you can roast a chicken, right? Basically what this is, based on her recipe, is a patted dried chicken, salt, butter, a carrot, an onion, and some vegetable oil. You put the vegetables down, you roast the chicken on the top of them, you treat the chicken with the salt and the butter, and you're basting it every so often. But the technique is you put it in for an hour at 425 to crisp the skin. You reduce the temperature down to 350, and the slow roasting begins. If you cook it at 450 for the whole duration, like Jack I think may have done, will dry out probably some of the other meats. At the end of the video, there's some weird things that happen, camera trickery, that we don't really have an explanation for.
Again,
we have some theories, but we don't really know what happened because of the jump cuts and the lies.
Yes, I was going to say 2 main ingredients, jump cuts and lies. Jack goes all the way through this video, and he tries to get to the word technique, because as Pink Chicken laid out for you, it's very simple ingredients. Roast chicken, a little salt, a little pepper, pepper,
Yeah,
little butter, a couple aromatics.
You don't really need
Butter.
You don't really need a lot to make a chicken taste good.
Right, lots of butter.
You see rotisserie chickens in stores. All
butter
they
helps.
do is just constantly, they're self-basting essentially.
The butter forgives all our sins.
They might treat it with a little seasoning at the beginning,
The
but
butter knows our secrets.
But basically, it's just roasting,
right.
It's rotating, it's roasting.
Right.
It's very hard to screw it up.
The butter knows our fantasies.
It does.
It sure does. What we're saying is the ingredients are simple, and what you have to master to get it to the level of a world-class, historically renowned chef like Julia Child is the technique. The technique is a word that Jack searches for the entirety of this 15-minute video and never reaches. He said, the way she treats the chicken, the way the chicken is treated, the treating of the chicken.
He keeps saying this. Ironic that he doesn't understand what that means.
Right.
Like, he talks about it, but he doesn't know what it means.
Nor does he understand how to keep cross-contamination from happening.
This is from roughly 6 months ago. This one has a little bit more views. I can't really...
Jack is not a famous YouTube chef. Jack is an infamous YouTube chef. So anytime he gets his hands on a chicken, one of the reasons you're listening to the Pink Chicken and the Lazy Man podcast is the entire fucking internet knows. All 7 continents of the earth, every corner of the globe knows that when Jack Scalfani gets his hands on a chicken, 9 chances out of 10 it's going to be an entertaining fuck show. That's why this video, unlike the brownie recipe video, which had 3,000 views on it, this particular video has 23,000 and counting views.
I seem to remember that this video was posted to r/cringe on Reddit or some kind of similar shock value group on Reddit, and that's why this got the amount of views that it did.
Anytime you put Jack and Chicken in a title, people are tuning in the same way that they would tune in if they saw the words tanker truck into daycare center. They just want to see a horror show.
The same reason why people usually watch NASCAR, for the crashes, for the train wrecks.
All gas, no brakes.
We're going to set the YouTubulators. They should be out of the closet, dusted off, ready to go.
Right, they're warmed up. They're quietly vibrating and humming in the back.
Wow. So here we go.
Could also be Pink Chicken's Trader 5000.
What?
What? You should start.
Okay.
Synchronize your YouTubulators. We are hitting play in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And we're back to the blank stare intro from the summer. So once we get past that, we'll be shown the ingredients out on the countertop. It's very simple. There's not that many ingredients. This kind of recipe is what Jack excels at. There's a chicken, carrots, onion, chicken stock, butter, salt and pepper.
There's something unusual here because as Jack's talking about the Julia Child technique of cooking this, he mentions that she's going to do a 3-pound chicken in a cast iron skillet. Jack is going to do a 5+ pound chicken in a 99-cent Dollar General, Dollar Tree, Family Dollar aluminum roasting pan.
It's really a flimsy one. In these cases, when I use this type of pan for something, I either double up on it, or if I'm going to be roasting something with it,
give a little support.
Put like a baking sheet or a baking tray, something to support the bottom, because when you pick it up, it like shimmies to one side or the other.
Right.
He does not do that. He uses one single pan and he puts it in directly into the oven.
If there's anything I've learned after living with Pink Chicken for all these years, it's support the bottom, guys. Support the bottom.
So, and I forgot, there is the drizzler of olive oil in the background.
Ah, the Rachel Ray drizzler of oil that he has. He normally holds at crotch level.
He's trying to impart on you something he learned about Julia, and that's how she treats the ingredients. And we talked about this. He completely misses the point as we go through this video. I think the first screw up here is the type of cooking device. You need support for it.
Now, quizzically, as we get towards the end of the video, you will see literally on the back of Jack's counter, Jack has a selection of cast iron pans.
Oh yeah, he's cooked with cast iron several times before in this kitchen.
We have these mysteries of the Scalfani verse, as we call them. Why are there cast iron pans? He mentions a cast iron pan, but he uses this flimsy aluminum. I'm thinking it has something to do with the weight. Remember, he's basically one-handed. And I think he thought, well, 5 pounds plus a chicken plus 4 or 5 pounds plus of cast iron pan means I'm not going to be able to maneuver this. And as Pink Chicken points out, mommy wife Tim is nowhere to be found in this video.
No, and if you look closely during the video at the clock on the back of the stove, it says like 1:30 or something like that, or 1:40 in the afternoon. And this is supposed to be their dinner. Even if you have a large large chicken, it takes 1 to 2 hours, because any more than that, you're drying out the breast meat.
Well, as we suggested, Jack's daily routine seems to be waking up in the very late morning, because remember, Jack doesn't have a full-time job. This is what Jack does. He's a YouTube guy. He's a content creator. So he wakes up late in the morning. He spurgs out on social media for a while. One wonders if mommy wife goes off to her day job, because she's actually the breadwinner of the family. One wonders if Jack's typical production schedule is starting at late morning just before or just after mommy wife's lunch hour. Maybe he's supposed to start before she comes home for lunch, because I feel like she lives close enough for her to come home for lunch.
Unless she works like 7 to 3. Maybe she works one of those really earlier shifts.
No, I think she's a 9 to 5-er. Given their penchant for going to Starbucks in the morning or the breakfast places they go, I feel like she's a late starter. Plus, she's a bookkeeper type person. So they typically don't get started until whatever they're producing, the production office that she works for. Normally the workers come in first and then the bean counters come in a little later. They like to start 9, 9:30, 10 o'clock. They're banker's hours people. I think this is one of those videos that Jackie was supposed to start early but didn't. Then mommy wife somehow contacted him at lunch and she's like, did you get that chicken started yet? Oh no, mommy wife. Well, you better. So if he starts the chicken at 12, till we get to 1:45, 1:48 that you see on the clock, that kind of lines up with the he started this about noon.
We paused the video here at time index 3:35 to go on that rant. So
extended rant.
I'm going to unpause it here in a second. Jack has moved the chicken from a bowl. Why even bother putting it in a bowl? Cut the chicken open, put it right in the pan. Or like, let it drain,
I wonder if the chicken was frozen and he had to defrost it.
He's already screwing up here because the carrots and the onions, which he roughly chops, the onions are in large chunks when they go in.
It's almost like he cut an onion in half and then just pulled it apart.
Or the halves in half. They're large chunks. What the recipe says, put the vegetables on the bottom, which makes sense to me because
a bed of aromatics.
You're putting the chicken breast side up on top of the vegetables. He doesn't do that. So here's screw up number 2.
Manhandling this chicken, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, it is not gentle. It is not loving.
And like for someone to rant about treating the ingredients.
This is like a Craigslist hookup behind an Arby's dumpster, which he may or may not have some familiarity with.
The other thing that, and this is a known technique for all kinds of chicken, is you want it dry. Because if it's wet, it's not going to roast. It's going to be
boil.
Slimy and weird. Instead of using a paper towel like a normal human being would, the first thing he should have done was pat the chicken dry.
Right.
He starts by treating it, like putting the butter on the skin, inside of the cavity, the salt and the pepper on everything. Well, he hasn't patted anything dry. Then he stops and is like, I have to go and pat this chicken dry after he's already started putting shit on it.
He takes a big gob of butter and he goes right for that open chicken cavity and he shoves the butter inside the chicken cavity. I've never seen that done. We've watched tons of roast chicken videos.
I don't think it hurts anything. I don't know what benefit you're getting from it.
He either misunderstood or he just physically couldn't do it and this is his poor substitute. Everybody else typically takes their fingers, they work the skin of the chicken loose, and they typically shove the butter between the skin and the flesh of the chicken. We paused it again at 5 minutes and 23 seconds.
Roughly about that timestamp is when he starts patting the chicken dry with a kitchen towel.
The same kitchen towel he's been using all through the episode.
A white kitchen towel. And
well, it was white.
Exactly.
That was carnation pink from the blood.
That comes in play later on.
Now, the fun part is he does mention the fact he knows he's doing some serious cross-contamination. There is now salmonella from one end of his kitchen to the other. As we approach time index 5:45.
There's a jump cut.
Before the jump cut, you notice there's a little booger of chicken flesh and salt, and maybe it's a piece of tea towel with it that goes flying across the screen. At 5 minutes and 45 seconds, something flies off of that chicken to parts unknown in his kitchen.
With the jump cuts here that are going on, he's saying he's washing his hands, but is he really?
He's probably just wiping them on the towel, which means that towel's getting just infected.
He's put all the salt and everything on there. He's now going on the outside of the skin with more butter.
Time index 6 minutes and 25 seconds. Jack decides to have his way. He uses the body heat of his hand to melt a little 2 tablespoon pad of butter. And now he starts molesting the chicken with it. Literally.
His hands are completely coated in butter.
Didn't take the ring off when he was patting the chicken dry.
And I said to Lazy Man, I'm like, how much you want to bet he goes and licks that butter off? He says he goes to wash them, but I bet you he licked some of the butter off. How could he resist?
Again, difficult to tell because we keep getting these little jump cuts, these little crossfades. the time index is passing. We have no much time is elapsing.
We don't see what time it is right away. He goes and starts trying to fit in the vegetables around the chicken.
7 minutes and 25 seconds.
The carrots and the onions, and you'll see what I mean. They're big wads of onion. Like he cut,
wads.
And he did have a large onion out there. So this is like
the sweet
quarters.
White onion, yeah. So it's a big, round, ovoid onion.
It's like softball size.
And he has like 2, maybe 3 carrots at most that are cut into basically quarters.
Here's another fuck up. This recipe that I read specifically says that you need to trust the chicken. What that means to me is bend the wings back behind the head so they don't burn the tips.
And you tasty tips of the wings.
And then also while you're doing that, tie the legs together at the ends so that they don't burn.
Little chicken
and they cut and they roast evenly. But he has the whole chicken now covered and surrounded by vegetables, where the chicken should have been resting on top of these vegetables.
You want the chicken to cook evenly. You want all the parts of the chicken. The thicker pieces of the chicken get more heat. The thinner parts of the chicken get less heat. Trussing it tightly like a Japanese dominatrix assures that each part of your chicken cooks to the proper time.
I don't know how much this really matters because Jack's oven is a convection type oven.
He is dumb enough to turn the fan on, thinking that, ooh, it's going to cook the meat faster. No, you are slow roasting a chicken. That's why it's almost a 2-hour cook time.
And I thought 450 seems a little high to me. And the recipe that I looked at that was Julia Child's roast chicken was 425 for roughly an hour. But each like 15 minutes, you're rotating the bird, you're moving it from one side, like on its side to the other side, so it kind of roasts evenly.
In the lead up to the Cronenbergs, the wet brine chicken and the dry brine chickens, we watched a lot of other YouTube channels for their roast chicken, and everybody was really hot on the salt, fat, acid, heat cookbook because they had just released that out on Netflix. So there were a lot of roast chicken recipes, and most of those recipes were 425 in the beginning, then dropped down to 400. All of them were basically saying, this is just to crisp the skin, this is introductory step, if you're going to cook the meat of the chicken, drop the temperature down.
And some of them even were specific what corners of the oven you wanted to roast it in. You put it in one corner of the oven, let it roast there, then switch the bird around and then move it to a different corner.
Yep.
I mean, it was very specific. We're not seeing any of that kind of technique here.
Jack is absolutely flabbergasted in surprise at the end of this video that the chicken actually comes out slightly golden brown, although the longer we looked at the chicken, the more
pinkish. It had a pinkish hue to it. But again, Jack's camera work is pretty shitty. So
and his white balance always sucks.
It's hard to discern one way or the other. He says that he checked the temperature with an instant read thermometer to be up to temperature, which, what is that, like 165 maybe?
165.
But we don't know where he stuck the chicken either. He could have stuck it right in the breast, like, which is directly under, the heating element.
Right, browning wire.
Where are we at here?
8 minutes and 3 seconds.
We're gonna start it back up. There's a lot to go through here because it's just a lot of weird shit happens at the end of this video.
The whole secret of this recipe is the technique, and Jack is trying his best to follow what he believes is the technique, but he's fucking it up so royal. Unlike his normal videos, which are dump everything in a bowl and throw that in the bit of the browning wire for a while.
What he does now at this point is grab tongs, and the tongs are gonna help him flip the bird around.
We're gonna watch this closely because at the very tail end of the video, he seems to be grabbing a towel and playing with his strokey hand. We're trying to figure out if it's just dirty or injured or something happened.
Did he burn it or what?
He doesn't have a lot of mobility here. He's only got one good arm, he's got one bad hand.
And we know he's by himself. He points out that Tammy's gonna come home for dinner and eat this later with him.
You'll see in a couple minutes here, there's also another little bit of subterfuge that he engages in regarding the pan itself. At time index 9 minutes and 20 seconds, you can see he is struggling to flip this bird.
He's like chasing the pan around the inside of the oven.
Now remember, this to him, because he got the numbers wrong, is a 450 degree oven. That's a pretty hot fucking oven.
He's basting the bird with a silicone basting brush. I think that I would much prefer to use a baster. It's a lot easier. And then you're not chasing the bird around either.
This was a curious shot. Jack left the video of the bird lying on its side. I said seductively beckoning Jack to its bird boudoir. Jack's basting the butt of the chicken with the butter.
So he's rotated it. And now he's saying he's going to put it on 350 degrees. Okay, so I missed that part earlier. I didn't think he turned it down. Okay, so he did turn it down to 350.
It's touch and go with him following the detailed technique of roasting this chicken.
Now he is using the steam gloves. I don't know what temperature they're good up to. I'm assuming they're okay because he's pulling the racks out with them and not wincing.
He's on dangerous ground here, and we're not sure where he'll take the chicken out of the oven here sooner than later. And and when it hits his counter, the pan it's in magically transmutes.
He pulls some of the juice out here. This is the juice section. He pulls out a tablespoon or two of drippings are in the pan. I don't know how he gets them out. Maybe he pulled the whole pan out and then pour it in there, or I would use a turkey baster.
In the sequence of videos that we're seeing here, the chicken is still in its cheap aluminum roaster pan. That went back in the oven, he shut the door. So the chicken's in there. But then he cuts to his stove and he's got this 2 or 3 tablespoons of chicken juice that he's supposed to turn into a sauce or a gravy, and he fucks that up because he doesn't thicken it.
And he's got the flame way too hot for it's gonna boil right off.
He's not gonna have anything left in that pan, but perhaps some frond. So now he's shaking a box of chicken stock at the pan on the stove, getting red hot.
If you listen to the ASMR, imagine Jack going to the toilet.
Or imagine Hope drinking out of Jack's toilet. It's a very, very wet lapping sound as the chicken stock hits the saucepan.
And even while we were watching it here, one of the cats was like, "What is going on?"
Yeah, a cat was going nuts listening to the sound.
Because we listened to it like 3 or 4 times trying to figure out what was going on with the pan, which, by the way, now is different.
So this is where the weirdness begins to happen. At the 13-minute mark, Jack cuts to his countertop and a close-up of the roasted chicken. We were looking at this going, what's different about this? And Pink Chicken goes, that's not the same roasting pan.
Yeah, this looks like a cake pan.
Like a 10 by 14 baking pan.
Yeah.
You can make a 9 by 13 cake in. But it is a solid pan. It is not the cheap, flimsy aluminum roasting pan that he had at the start of the video. So we're wondering, when he pulled the juice out, or in pulling the chicken out to baste it and put it back in, pulling it out and putting it back in, did the pan finally give way? Did he have to transfer it?
Because we were talking about the cast iron situation earlier, like it would be maybe too much for him to lift. The chicken was 5 pounds, but then he put like at least a pound or 2 of veggies. So now it's 7 pounds. I don't know what the weight limitations of those flimsy pans are.
Either the pan itself gave way, or it was too hard for him to manipulate, or a combination of both, but the chicken ends up in a different pan than it started out with, and he doesn't say why, he doesn't show why.
With these flimsy pans, they're fine to use. I would either double up on the pan, or if you're going to use just one pan, put a baking sheet underneath it.
Right.
Which he didn't do either of these things, so we could only imagine that the pan gave way.
Some type of structural incident happened with his initial roasting pan.
The chicken itself looks better than most of the chickens he's made in the past.
Compared to the Cronenbergs, this is amazing.
The legs still look pink to me.
If you look at the chicken at 13 minutes and 20 seconds, and you look at the chicken as it is, the chicken looks better than it is. The top of the chicken is golden brown. But remember, he hit that with 4 or 5 lacquered coats of butter. He was being observant, if not accurate, with his temperature. So no matter what happens, the skin is going to crisp and get golden brown like you want it to. Whether or not that indicates that he actually let the chicken go for an hour at the 350 degree mark, because we know, thanks to the Cronenberg videos, that Jack wants to get to that chicken meat as fast as he possibly can. So did he leave it in there for the full hour? He might have, but as Pink Chicken points out, if you look towards the legs of the chicken and even the underside of the chicken underneath the breast, there's a lot of variation in the coloring of this chicken.
Yeah,
and some of it tends towards the pinkish hue.
It definitely is lighter on the bottom, and again, I think that's because he crowded the pan with all those vegetables rather than roasting it on the top of them. But the nether regions, the legs, and whatever the fat is sticking out from the chicken's cavity,
near Amsterdam, the nether regions,
look pink to me.
More mysteries as he cuts to the wide shot here.
Yeah.
There's either the basting brush or some other type of kitchen implement in the new roasting pan that has somehow inserted itself in the posterior of the chicken.
Oh yeah, that's the basting brush.
Okay, yeah, that's stuck underneath the chicken. So it's almost like propping, it's jacking up the foreground leg of the chicken.
What confuses me though, because these weren't there at the beginning of the video. If you look to the left of Jack, the counter behind him where he has all of his cookbooks that he never uses, there's 2 pans out and they appear to be cast iron pans sitting on the countertop. Why the hell is this in a different pan all of a sudden? Maybe he panicked? Maybe he dropped it on the floor? Something happened with that other pan.
Our supposition, our hypothesis, is there was some type of structural failure incident with that aluminum roasting pan that he was using. Either it gave way when he was trying to pull the basting out, or when he was fucking with the chicken trying to baste it. Something happened. It just started giving way, and he used the baking dish to support it, the cake pan here, or it may have in fact structurally failed, and the chicken hit the floor, and he basically scooped the chicken up with the tongs and using the basting brush. Or he may have manhandled it with his dead arm, because pretty soon he's gonna start noticing that his dead hand is either injured or dirty, because he has to walk off camera.
The two pans were not there at the beginning of the video. There is a meat thermometer back there, so I'm assuming he had tested the chicken in at least one area.
We're at time index 13 minutes 55 seconds. Now here comes the most dangerous part of the video. Jack is threatening the chicken with a knife. He is waving that carving knife over the chicken as if he's trying to find the perfect angle with which to carve the breast.
It's a long knife, but it's thin. It's got a thin blade.
It's got a curved blade on the front of it. At 14 minutes and 7 seconds, you see him going in with the carving knife. At 14 minutes and 8 seconds, we get a 1 second smash dissolve to 14 minutes and 9 seconds where he has in his hand
one of the chicken quarters.
He ripped off the lower quarter of the chicken. The whole leg and thigh came right off.
Now let's assume it's 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. This is supposed to be their dinner. He's eating half of the bird. He's consuming a large portion of it. I don't think he's stopping here. Once that camera's off, it's anyone's guess.
The gastrosexual must feed. He's lovingly holding on to that ripped off leg of chicken.
Now you think he would take like a little nibble, a quick little bite, just like, yes, this is...
Just taste the meat.
No, he shoves the entire thigh into his face.
The most entertaining snapshot you have is if you pause the video like we just did here at time index 14 minutes and 15 seconds. Jack's eyes have lolled into the top of his skull, so you see nothing but white, like a shark's eyes, as he shoves the whole fucking chicken. You can see sticking out the left side of his hand is the leg bone of the chicken. He is just shoving as much chicken in his mouth as he could possibly fit, almost to the point of invoking his gag reflex.
He had the gag reflex removed last surgery.
So he's going to town, munching. He's going back for a second bite. Oh my god. The amount of chicken the man has in his mouth right now is fucking epic.
Then he sucks on his fingers for...
Sucks on them.
5 seconds at least. Right. So imagine that sound when you're, trying to fall asleep at night.
Right. 5.
Gross.
Because 4 fingers and a thumb. He goes down. Yeah. He doesn't just lick la 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 la. He doesn't lick the tips of his fingers. Like a man earning his money behind that Arby's dumpster. He goes down to the third knuckle. He almost gets the whole fist in it. He's almost fisting himself to get every drop of that chicken-laden butter drippings off of his finger. It's also the ring hand.
There's the chicken guts on it.
Right.
The pre-roasting chicken guts.
Right. Little bit of chicken gut smegma around the foreskin of the silicone wedding ring.
Right.
Just in case you need a visual. So there he is. He's licking every paw. Licking every bean on his paw. He is in ecstasy over how good the chicken came out. He even snuck a piece of onion for some reason.
Yeah, he wanted to test the onion.
So he devoured the thigh of the chicken that he ripped off, and now he's going after the leg.
Really strange, like looking at the vegetables on the roasting pan, it seemed like there were a lot more before it went in. I know they shrink, don't get me wrong. If there was an incident where something had spilled on the floor,
yes, that would...
he could probably have lost some of the vegetables then.
Now, this is what we're talking about. At time index 14 minutes and 57 seconds, he gets a little nonplussed. There's something happened. His voice gets soft, and he's like, I have to go over here now. And if you notice, he doesn't have the towel in front of him because that towel is supposedly contaminated. Now remember where Jack is. He's in his kitchen. To frame right is Jack's laundry room.
Yeah.
So he could have immediately put the towel from his countertop immediately into the drum of the washer. Yeah. Therefore taking proper food safety handling procedures.
That's a woman's job, lazy man.
Well, that is. I think we can all agree, fellows, right?
I'm sure that Tammy probably does all the laundry.
She usually does the laundry on the weekends when he's actually trying to film a video.
Her washer and dryer set kind of sing when...
They go off like a Japanese rice cooker. They do a little song.
Instead of putting it in the washing machine, he puts it probably somewhere close to the sink,
off
I'm
camera,
guessing.
Probably by the Cheez-Its.
Yeah.
He's reappeared with the towel.
The contaminated towel. It's the same one. But he has it shoved into his claw arm. It looks like he went and got like a compress. Maybe he burned himself taking this out of the oven somehow?
Or that structural failure of the original roasting pan.
Maybe it spilled some of the liquid liquid on himself in that burn. He's shoving it down in there as if it's injured or trying to really clean it off. Maybe there's a cold compress going on. It's really weird.
This is where our hypotheses differ. Pink Chicken believes that he's injured the dead claw arm. I believe that he has just moistened with the chicken grease. When you saw him hovering over the bird to try to carve it with the knife, and then we smash cut to him with a piece of ripped off leg, unless you take your strokey arm and shove it into the carcass of the chicken, you're not going to be able to have the strength to rip a leg off a chicken unless you weight it down somehow. My supposition is that he held it down with strokey arm, ripped the leg off the chicken, or was basically ripping extremities off of the chicken, then noticed, because I don't know how much feeling he has in that hand, the stroke-laden hand, I think then he noticed that like goo was dripping off the chicken from his ripping action. So Pink Chicken's supposition is injury, my supposition is filth.
The other theory is, with using that knife the way he was swinging it around like that, maybe he cut himself. I don't see any blood or anything like that, but maybe it's just like a little nick or something.
He's never done this in any other video.
Right.
Where he's taken the towel and he's wrapping up that strokey dead hand.
Yeah, something's weird.
Something happened. He either burnt his dead hand in the structural failure of the aluminum pan, or he injured himself with the knife, or it's just covered in chicken filth because he had to rip that leg off. He just couldn't wait. The Wendigo had to feed.
It's really weird. If mommy wife isn't coming home until 5 o'clock, why are you starting dinner at 1 o'clock in the afternoon when a chicken does not take longer than 2 hours to do? I mean, even if you are disabled. If you started it at 3,
right,
you could probably have it done or almost ready to come out of the oven for 5 o'clock. Like, why is he starting it so early?
Well,
I don't think this is dinner. I think this is Jackie Snacky.
Ooh, secret eating.
Secret eating.
Secret eating, guy.
It's not going to make it into the closet. He's going to have it all finished before that happens.
Oh, yeah, he's just going to dive his whole head into that roasting pan and go after every little bit of buttery onion goodness and chicken offal. I think it just has to do with Jack's production schedule. Jack does not have a day job, so Jack pretends that filming these little 20-minute videos or 15-minute videos, now down to like 5 or 6-minute videos, Jack pretends that is his job. So he does that at normal office hour time.
Now I have a question, because I'm reading this recipe. It says, remove the chicken from the oven and transfer to a hot platter. Let rest 5 to 10 minutes before carving. Do you think he let it rest? I think he carved right into it.
I'm also interested in this hot platter idea.
Obviously, he stole the recipe. I don't think he cracked open the Julia Child's cookbook, because that requires too much effort, and he's a lazy man, as we know.
Absolutely.
I think he went online and Googled Julia Child roast chicken recipe, and whatever came back as the first result, it was what he picked. There's 100 other ones out there like this, and it's basically all the same.
He barely masters any of the basic techniques for this, falls far short of his supposed goal of aping Julia Child.
I'm gonna call this 0 for 3. What do you think? Is this a win or a loss?
Well, it's a win for us, in that we get the most mysterious of the Julia in June videos, because there's so many mysteries to be unraveled and savored at the end of this video.
I feel like we missed a lot of this the first time we watched it, so I'm glad we waited a little bit and really like studied it. A lot better than some of the other chicken recipes he's
Based
done.
at our quarters and applied even heat.
But I still don't think it's right. The technique is still not right. So I'm gonna say 0 for 3.
I say 0 for 3 as well. Use your pink scoring sheets and follow along at home.
So the next recipe in the series is the most baffling one of the bunch, and the most disgusting one, I think, too. Spaghetti Marco Polo.
Oh, yes. I put that out of my head like an alien abduction, but yes.
Yes.
Now that you mention it, again, why would you do that to Spaghetti Man? Why?
That's what our next episode will be.
I have delicate Italian sensibilities, and to see pasta abused in such a way is just...
So that'll be our next recipe, something to look forward to. For now, we're gonna close up shop here and start editing.
This will take the place of our January 14th, 2 p.m. live stream, The Boys Club.
Woo!
Which you can tune into usually at our usual time, Saturday at 2 p.m. on YouTube. If you're listening to this in its pure podcast form, thank you. We are up to season 5 of Pink Chicken and the Lazy Man. Thank you for joining us for it. As always, I am Tom the Lazy Man.
I'm Michelle Pink Chicken. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Discord, all the usual social media channels. We appreciate you.
We're big on social media.
Yes, and we hope hope
We're
that
banned by Jack on most of our social media.
Yeah, hey, how about it?
All of our burner accounts.
All of our burner accounts.
That he knows of.
So join us next time for Spaghetti Marco Polo, which will be an absolute shit show. Thank you for joining us.
On
Pink Chicken and the Lazy Man.